Good morning. FreeSpirit Fabrics here today. We are very excited to welcome all of you joining us. We have a very exciting guest to share with you today, Anna Maria Horner. She'll be on momentarily, but in the meantime, I would like to welcome all of you to FreeSpirit Inspired By. We come on weekly for those of you that are following us. I know many of you do, and I know many of you are tuning in today because we have Anna with us. She's going to be talking about her new collection that will be shipping this November. It's called Our Fair Home. And she's going to be walking us through the collection, talking about the collection. She'll probably have a few other things that she'll be talking about as she, talks about this collection and maybe a few other things in there. Anna, you know what I mean. She's in the background waiting. And she's also going to be talking to you about that beautiful quilt that she made, Our Fair Home quilt kit. And for those of you that follow Anna, she's done an awful lot of posts on Instagram, and you've probably seen the progression of the quilt as she's been going through the progress. Beautiful photographs. It's a wonderful quilt. We know that you've probably all been very excited watching her make it. And now, here we are at the end. The quilt is made, and Anna is with us today to talk about it. So we're very excited to have her join us. We're excited to have you join us. Please let us know where you're tuning in from. We'd love to know where you're joining us from. We thank you for taking the time to join us. I want to just tell you before I switch the camera over to Anna that the fabric hanging behind me, which Anna will also discuss more, but we always get the question, so I'm going to say this is called Peony, and this is a 108-inch quilt back that will be offered with the Our Fair Home collection. So Anna, again, we'll talk about that more, but for those of you that are interested, this is a 108-inch quilt back, and it's really gorgeous. Look at those peonies on there. So much you could do with that in so many ways, not just a quilt back. So I think that without further, I have to say one other thing. So not without further ado just yet. So this quilt kit, like I said, the collection and the kit ship in November of 2023. So if you are a retailer and you're watching us today, the cutoff to order the kit is June 26th. I knew that date, I just had to double check it. So it's June 26th at the end of this month. If you are a retailer and you would like to place an order for these kits. Now, if you are a quilter and a maker and you're watching today and you are so inspired, which I know you will be, and you want to make this quilt kit, you need to reach out to your local retailer and tell her, I just saw Anna Maria Horner today, and I am definitely interested in making the Our Fair Home kit. And you need to tell them that you would like to place an order, that you want this kit. So that's how we're going to go about this. And without further ado, now I'm going to switch the camera over to Anna Maria. So hold on one second here. And there you are, Anna.
Hi.
Welcome. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Sharon. Always doing such a good job.
Oh, thank you. You do too.
Remembering your dates.
Checking I messed that up a little bit, but I got it in there. So the quilt looks gorgeous behind you.
Thank you.
I'm so excited. Look at that. I love it.
It's always a challenge to show. I don't make small quilts. I've tried.
Well,
and then I make it and I'm like, oh, that's a block.
Yeah.
I need to make more. So I'm really pleased with the quilt. And if you've followed, what I make, a house quilt really kind of just by the genre sits outside of what I would typically do. It's a little cute for me, but I have always looked at house quilts, very traditional ones, early American ones, and even some of the contemporary modern quilts that have sort of offbeat geometry to them. And I always love them. And it's always just kind of been this little seed in the back of my head. And I guess obviously once I designed a collection called Our Fair Home, I'm like, right, maybe it's time to do that. Maybe, but make it like me, make it like big, hard to ignore kind of, but also very sweet, because I feel very affectionate about this collection because it's inspired by this beautiful cottage that was built in 1900 that I had the privilege of moving into 2 years ago, that requires a different level of love.
Yes. Yes, they always do.
It requires a different level of love, but I so far, also delivers a different level of comfort, and sort of gratification of, kind of taking care of this place. So so I really designed the collection about this home and called it Our Fair Home. And I have spent the 2+ years that I've been in it, like trying to go easy on the renovations and things. Of course, I come in and I want to break out the graph paper and reorganize the inside and do different things. But I was really focused on building my new studio, which if you follow me on social media, you've seen the studio go up. And the studio kind of looks like a miniature version of the house, It's built in the same style because, of course, being in a historic neighborhood, you have all these rules and all that. But it's been so worth it. And the way that I pulled together the fabrics to share with you today, when I was laying them out, I thought, okay, I'll do big prints, small prints, geometric prints, the way I normally show them, like features. But I'm like, you know what? Really, this collection divides itself down the middle between documenting and imaginings. And I realized that a lot of my fabric collections are probably exactly that, because so many of my collections are based on experiences or a time and place. Or just, a lot of garden inspiration, of course, but sometimes those gardens are in other parts of the world. Sometimes the whole collection is based on another part of the world. But I was so excited to be inspired by just this little 1/3 acre,
Yeah.
and it just goes to show that you don't have to go far if you're paying attention, to be inspired. And so the document half of the collection is really documenting what was around me in the house and what is around me in this house. And so I'll go through the prints and share with you some of the little stories behind them. The first one is called Aphrodite. And this is the print.
Pretty.
And you can see those Greek columns there, and you can see the little bird and the line work, and you can see some foxgloves. And this print was inspired by a little bird, a little robin that we named Aphrodite, that nested on top of one of our columns on the porch. And we gave her a nice Greek goddess name because she was on top of these Greek columns. And she had 2 little beautiful blue robin's egg birds, or eggs in the nest last year, and 2 little birds. And I'm pretty sure those birds are still hanging around the yard, because I see these really pesky 2 birds that are bigger but not fully mature yet, hanging around our yard a lot. So
I love the story behind that, Anna. That's great.
So that's a nice bright one. And then this is a more kind of deeper one where, the birds are a little more kind of a softer line drawing in the back. But this one makes a really pretty vertical, but still kind of undulating design. So really pretty to use. And in fact, we've used it here kind of to create a border. And I used it I did the print so that you have some of the art facing this way and some facing that way. And that gives you these opportunities to make like these hearts here. And that beautiful kind of foxglove bend, like kind of hugs the heart a little bit.
Yeah, that's really beautiful.
And then this is called Trellis.
Love that one too.
Very usable.
Yeah.
And I have little verbena flowers in front of it. The funny thing is, though, my trellis doesn't do this. My trellis does this.
Oh, well.
So maybe this sits in the imaginings and the documenting. But there is a trellis on the house, which I was super excited about. That trellis is kind of neon and probably will not show up in this live stream. But there's lots of great digital images at freespiritfabrics.com if you want to see anything up close. And this is called Neighborly. And this is definitely a document of a moment in time. Where my next door neighbor's fence line, or the fence line between my neighbor and I on one side, she has all these blooming, there's almost no trees in my backyard. I think there's one in the back corner. And now there's a big studio in that empty space, but she has blooming trees all along the fence line, and these are abelias, and they attract a specific type of swallowtail butterfly that I looked out my kitchen window one day and just saw all this commotion around these
Wow.
blossoms. They were covered. There must have been like 20 of these butterflies all over them.
That's wonderful.
And so I do what I normally do in those situations. I, go outside without shoes or a bra with my camera, but in my own yard this time. So it was a little safer. And I just like try not to scare them away. And it was personally such a beautiful moment because they weren't scared away. Oh, that's upside down. I guess there's really not an upside down because they go all directions.
Yeah.
But they weren't scared away at all. They just flitted around and did their thing. And there was a little
Wow.
bumblebee there as well. I have the
Wow. Yeah, that fabric's really beautiful, Anna.
bumblebee too. Thank
And
you.
what a treat to see that many butterflies in one place.
Oh, it was incredible. And I'm so glad I did this because we had a hard freeze all over the South, as you know, and that
Right.
poor bush, I mean, it went all along the fence line and just draped over my fence. And it's kind of making the fence knock over. That's an issue for another day. But I'll put on a bra to talk about that with my neighbor. But it all froze off. Like there's only a few little leaves down at the bottom. There were no blossoms this year. So the blossoms come by way of fabric. So I was thinking about taking a few yards over to my neighbor.
Oh, she'd probably appreciate that.
Yeah. And then this one is called housewarming. Did I call this one housewarming? I think so. Yeah. I called this housewarming because guess what? It was a housewarming gift from my friend Kathy McKinnon. She brought me a beautiful peony when I moved into the house, a pink one.
Mhm.
And so I'd never had a peony in my garden before because they seem hard, maybe. I
Mhm.
don't know. Anything you have to stake, I'm like, but done. It's done beautifully. So we have that nice kind of subtle, more subtle but rich tones. And then we have this one,
So
which
pretty.
the colorway is called Shocking.
Shocking.
And I would much rather be shocked by flowers than people. So that's all
Yes.
fine.
Yes.
So those are all documented things. Like those are moments in time. Those are actual things around my house. But then there's this whole other part of the collection that's kind of what I like would put in the category of imaginings, like, yes, of course, we also need some geometry. So a lot of these are more geometric. But I thought about this house and how long it's been in existence and thought about all the decades it's gone through and thought about like the different fashions that must have changed from 1900 to 2023, like
Mhm.
the different curtains, bedding, clothing that have been hanging in closets and on beds and couches. And so I got kind of stuck in the, 50s and 60s and 70s because
Mhm.
it's so front porch, Southern lemonade kind of neighborhood,
Mhm.
and so in a way, the whole collection color wise is almost a little preppy,
Mhm.
in terms of color compared to what I normally do. This is called Peacock. So just the kind of forms are very sort of retro
Yeah.
and bright. And then we did a deeper one as well.
So
And
beautiful.
these are really fun to use. I use those very specifically in these Dresdens here.
Mhm.
So they're packed in really well, kind of like the echinacea. There's a lot on one fat quarter, and they're packed in a way and perfect for Dresden, something a little bit longer. So you can get, you can cut and use just about all this fabric, even if you're fussy cutting.
Right.
There's very little waste. And then I was when I was doing some garden plans and thinking about kind of collaging different ground stonework and brick, I was doing this little drawing of like, maybe like smaller stones here, bigger ones there, bricks there. And it just became this print called Walkway.
Yes, I love this one. Very
Which is
nice.
also it's a really fun, it's organic, but also geometric, but it doesn't
Mhm.
have the hard lines of a
Mhm.
plaid or a check, so that
Mhm.
it's more forgiving if you're trying to be specific about cutting things, And
Mhm.
of course we had to use that. Well, it's hard to see now, but we have that in the walkway of the quilt,
Yeah.
and across the bottom, which we
Yeah.
can't use the table. And here's the other colorway of that.
Yeah. So beautiful. Very
And
nice.
then I'm getting married next month.
Ooh, do tell.
I'm getting married.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And those are like, I think that like I designed this quilt right after we got engaged in
Mhm,
August of last year. And so I think I wasn't just doing a house quilt. I think I maybe was kind of subconsciously doing a bit of a wedding quilt as well with the two little
mhm,
hearts there.
mhm.
But I also designed a print called Compromise.
Oh,
And you see those two little flowers leaning in and compromising.
oh,
So
yes,
I think of them kind of as a little couple.
yes. They're a very
But
happy couple. They're a
a
very
very happy
happy couple.
couple, very in sync and growing together.
Yeah.
But the organization of this print is kind of a fun one too. It works itself out like a stripe, but
Hmm.
also sort of in blocks.
Right.
Um, I'm really excited about the idea of stitching on this one as
Mhm.
well, like some crewel work on the top of it.
Oh,
So we
yeah.
did that in that sort of medium-ish scale, and then we did it a bit bigger on an aqua background.
Beautiful. Oh,
Oops, sorry. So
very
I
nice.
think the first one we have 6 across, and this one we have 4 across.
Hmm. Very
But I
nice.
always like try to make sure that the yardage all the way across the selvage works out well. Like I really consider the width of these elements, and I don't want to cut it right off in the middle for you.
Right.
You know what I
Right.
mean? I try to scale it in a way that you're really using everything, particularly if it's kind of like a very kind of rigid organization of a design, you know.
Mhm.
Um, Otherwise it feels like someone stole your fabric.
That's right. Well, we
Where'd the
thank
rest
you
of that
for
go?
thinking of that. I mean, as
You're welcome.
makers, we appreciate that.
You're
So
welcome.
thank you.
Happy to help. And then this one, I was thinking about like plaid ties in the 50s.
Oh,
And so this one is called Checkers Sunday is the colorway. And this one is called Checkers Saturday.
oh, I like it.
So this is the menswear.
Right. The menswear of your
You get
collection.
two, which is kind of the difference between a male closet and female closet
Yeah,
in
exactly.
my house. You get this much space.
That's right.
So, but yeah, I have the backing. I know Sharon has it too, but I can show it to you a little closer. So I fell in love with the peony as I was drawing it. And so I decided that we should make it massive and turn
Yeah.
it into a backing.
So beautiful.
And I did this
Yeah.
one in very, it's a lot softer, you know, in color than a lot of the collection. Um,
Hmm.
but I was really focused on the collection having just, I wanted everything to feel like there was sunlight there. You know,
Right.
even the darker colors, there were these like really beautiful pops of things. But like in my mind's eye, when I think of this house, I think of sunshine, you know, just, I don't know if it's because I spend a lot more time outside because of the porches but it's just, it feels very sunny. And that's what I wanted the collection to feel like.
Hmm.
So those are all the pieces. And we also shipping in just like a month or so, we have like
Yes.
part of this year is seeing a kind of a continual refresh of the Love Always library,
Hmm.
where it started out a few years ago as like big feature prints and kind of favorites and most asked for prints. It's being slowly transitioned into something that's very usable daily and very usable in lots of places. It's more like, I don't want to call it basics because it's anything but a basic,
Right.
but you saw the new echinaceas that are already out there with braid.
Beautiful.
And
Yes.
we're
Yes.
about to get started doing the Brave Club, which is super exciting in a couple of weeks. So there's a lot of those bright echinaceas and in towns, but this next 10 pieces of Love Always is coming through in July. And they go back to some favorite prints from the
Beautiful.
past, and they've been recolored. So if you look at those first 10 pieces of the Love Always that are a refresh, they're just very sunny and light filled. And these just go a little deeper and more saturated, but
Hmm.
I've used them. You can see how beautifully they work in the quilt because I've used them in lots of places. I've used these multicolored cathedrals. This was in my very first fabric collection, Bohemian, and this is the first time. That was in 2005, I think. So this is the
Wow.
first time that we've ever reprinted them.
I
And
didn't know that, Anna. That's
yeah,
interesting. Yeah.
yeah, and I use them as kind of a window here. You
Hmm.
might barely be able, it's kind of hard, and they sort of blend between, the blue one kind of blends between two of the fabrics just kind of on the side. I have to show you because these things excite me.
We'll see it.
But just like it's such a good indication of how well they sit with each other and the other fabrics. So I sort of used it as an in-between.
Oh yeah, look at
fabrics.
that. Very nice.
Yeah, so it's kind of an interesting blender, if you will. And then we also have Fortune back, and Fortune was very first in my Good Folks collection from 2009. And I also have never reprinted that before, but I used all three of these in this collection, or in this quilt as well. I used the midnight one on the outer borders. And then these Lemoyne stars are fussy cut. Those diamonds are fussy cut, and they alternate between two of the fabrics. So those circular kind of flowers are really beautiful to fussy cut. I've used them as all the centers for the Dresden as well. And then this lace we've done in 4 new colors, and we've used 2 of them in the quilt because they blend so beautifully with everything. Yep, you can see those in these windows right here as well, and in some of the Dresdens. So those are all the fabrics. And
wow.
What else do you want to know?
Well, thank you for showing those to us. I mean, I had no idea that you had brought back that other print. So that was a little history lesson here.
That's right.
I enjoyed that. So thank you for sharing all those with us. You do
my pleasure.
Beautiful, beautiful design work, Anna. And as makers, like I said, we love what you do, love the different scales and the places that we can use it, right? Whether we're doing EPP or we're doing regular blocks or fussy cut or borders or what, you have it all. You have it all in your collections.
Thanks, girl.
So
it's fun to see what people do with it.
Could you tell us a little bit more about the Our Fair Home quilt behind you?
Yeah, absolutely. So,
well, Anna, I have a question for you, not to put you on the spot, but I am going to put you on the spot.
Do it.
I've noticed, you know, when you design quilts, it's almost like your signature. I mean, you have a lot of signatures in the quilts that you design, but one of them to me feels like it's always the Dresden.
Yeah.
You know, and I too love a Dresden plate, and I'm just curious to know, like, what is it about a Dresden that draws you to a Dresden?
Sharon.
Besides the obvious?
It's a flower.
All right. I just didn't know if it was like your first quilt or if
no one's ever asked me that though. No, they feel like magic to me, those little Dresdens, just like how they come together, because I think that I also really love any block or technique that feels a lot more advanced and complicated than it actually is to put together. I find them, particularly the pointed Dresdens, like I find them, this one is a pointed Dresden, where you like, you know, fold the top and sew and it creates this point.
Right.
I find them so unintimidating once you've made that first one. I find them sort of just like the way they pop and make that point is just so, I find it entertaining. How boring am I? I'm like entertained by how well they come together. And so I almost always do the pointed ones, but I thought I would do the curved petal ones, which, you know, if you're doing turned applique, that does require like a curved turn. But if you do any of it on the machine with fusible and do raw edge, that is so simple. But yeah, they always do kind of show up. And I think it's because of that sort of floral reference that I enjoy so much. But the quilt itself, you know, I think that when I first was starting to show some digital images of it a few weeks ago, there was, I think, a lot of presumptions about size. And I think people pictured it as maybe because it's a house, pictured it as more of a wall hanging type size rather than a bed quilt. I think it finishes at about 83 inches square. So it's nice and big. And it would be easier to put more borders on. I didn't put a very wide border on it. It's pretty small, but you definitely could add another 6 inches to that border and have it cover a king bed, really. But I think that when you know that the scale is bigger, it's almost less intimidating. And that's kind of what I've been trying to show in those posts of doing, like I showed this block, if you will, first by itself, because when you break it down into blocks, and it is a block quilt, are they repeated blocks? Not really. A lot of them, there's two, because it's a symmetrical quilt. So there's one big section, which I'll just call a block, and then another big block is the house, and then another one is sort of the sidewalks. And then you have a few going up that build kind of like flowers in the yard, roof line, and a flower kind of up in the air. And so the only thing that, as far as like constructing this quilt, that you really have to keep an eye on when you're doing it is just the symmetry. Because like this block and this one will be made from the exact same elements, but so you can cut everything in duplicate, and you can kind of prep everything in duplicate, but when you go to sew it, you just have to lay it out and look at that mirror image kind of arrangement. And that's the same all the way down the sides of the quilt. But other than that, like, it's basically, the sections are, for me, and my notes and the pattern are labeled like A through K, I think. And I think the last 3 letter pieces are just borders, So I did a Lemoyne star for the first time. I'd never done this little block before. I'm interestingly just getting very curious and fascinated with really traditional blocks. That I've never really explored, other than log cabin and house square triangles and things like these. Like, I've used a lot of those too, but I'm kind of getting interested in very traditional ones, and kind of focusing on those as features in the quilt instead of always just focusing on applique. I'm starting to kind of interject a lot more of those. And what's so funny, and it should be like a quilter's personality test. Like, I saw the Lemoyne star and I was like, yeah, I think I want to put that in my design. I worked out the, kind of like what the templates would be based on the shape, not even thinking that maybe I could avoid set-in seams or Y seams. I just did it that way, And then I thought, like, oh, I'm going to make some people mad with these set-in seams, because I just automatically cut 8 diamond shapes, right? These 8 diamond shapes. And then I cut 4 squares, and then I cut 4 triangles. And I just set it all in. Right. But that's someone who comes from like dressmaking background and clothing, and like set in is normal, So, and I thought, maybe I should just like look it up. Let me look it up. How do people make the Lemoyne star? And there are like so many easier ways to do it. Like a lot of easier ways that involve like, putting seams in the triangles and putting seams. I mean, you can do it with half square triangles as well. And putting seams in those kind of background squares and triangles. So I'm pretty sure that that's how I'll present the pattern, because the background fabrics are very basic, they're like basic fabrics. So it wouldn't matter if there's a seam in them. Right. So I'm working hard for you people.
Yes. Well, it's a gorgeous quilt. And Anna, what I love, like when I look at the quilt, well, first of all, as makers, I know that so many quilters love a house quilt, right? I don't know particularly why we're drawn to them, but I know that we are collectively.
Love our homes.
Well, but they're homes. But I just think that it's very interesting that so many makers enjoy making homes, and I like this presentation. It's a completely different way. It's still a home, and I love all the symbolism that you have in the quilt. So now that we understand the collection, and we can see like all the symbolism in the collection and how you placed it in the quilt, I mean, it's very strategic, Anna. I don't know if you intended to be that way, but
well, it's one of those, I've had several of these moments in my career, but it's one of those moments where I hear my dad in my head saying, like, should be an architect. It's one of those moments going, yeah, I probably should have. It's just like, it's a very two-sided brain quilt. It is very organized and it's very structured and all that sort of thing. But I think that there's a lot of security in that as well. If you're approaching it and it feels like maybe the skill level is just above what feels comfortable. Like, if you feel that way, I would highly encourage you to give it a go, because it's, it is very strategic. you
Mhm.
know, but the thing that I'm kind of like, I'm always excited about the newest collection, and Our Fair Home is the newest collection right now for me. Um, I think what I'm excited about is to see how many ways this pattern can be used. It feels like a very perennial pattern. It feels like
Mhm.
it would look beautiful with all my fabrics. It feels like you
Exactly.
could do so many different palettes. And
Mhm.
I think that it's a beautiful wedding gift. It's a beautiful anniversary gift. It's a beautiful
Exactly.
housewarming gift. Like, and maybe the love for the house quilts comes because of that, because so often, I mean, how many quilts probably are made as gifts? Half of
Right.
them at least,
Right. Yeah, you're
if not
exactly right.
more.
Yeah.
And so this is sort of like a fresh new way. Like maybe you want to give a quilt to a couple that's getting married, but you're like, they don't seem very quilty, you know? And
Yeah.
like maybe this is a contemporary sort of kind of more, something different that you could do.
Right.
But
No, I love the
fun.
ways that you just suggested, in terms of the gift giving, like whether it be given as a housewarming gift, a wedding gift, an engagement gift, an
Yeah,
anniversary gift. I mean,
yeah,
and it encompasses all of that,
yeah,
and
yeah.
the hearts in it and everything. So it's very nicely done, Anna. So
Thank
thank
you.
you for sharing all of that with
Thank
us.
you. My pleasure.
So I know that Anna has inspired you to make this quilt. And in doing so, I just want to remind everyone that the cutoff to order the kit is June 26th. So with the inspiration that you've received today for both the collection and the kit from Miss Anna Maria, we would encourage you to reach out to your local retailer and tell her, I saw this today and I absolutely want to make it. Please order a kit for me and bring in the collection, because I'm going to make my kit bigger. I'm making my quilt bigger. I want to make the borders a
And
little
I'm
bit
going to make
bigger.
curtains to go with it.
Exactly. Oh yeah. And did you
Oh, we
put
do
that on
have
the
the
back?
backing on there as well.
Right,
I mean, I know you've seen it a couple ways, but
right, right. Beautiful. Look how
yeah,
nice that looks.
yeah, looks really pretty.
So right, and the 108-inch quilt back, and like you said, there's a million different things you could do with the 108-inch quilt back as well. So
Absolutely.
please reach out to your local retailer, let her know you're interested. And if you are a retailer and you're watching, please reach out to your sales rep and let them know, because there is that deadline of June 26th.
Yep.
So Miss Anna, we thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Miss Sharon.
And I really appreciate it. I mean, it truly is very inspiring to, understand how, I didn't know any of that about, the butterflies and how you were
Yeah,
inspired in your backyard. And it's just very interesting to see all of this. And it makes it more interesting when you're working on it, or I'm
it
looking at the
does.
booklet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's more fun for me. And I couldn't come up with this by myself.
Oh, are there any? Oh, wait, I forgot to ask. Are there any?
I need input from my surroundings. So
Right. So we don't have any questions, just lots of hearts, lots of love, lots of thumbs up.
awesome. That
And
means we answered everything.
yeah, I think we answered all the questions, right? All right. And you just said a lot of accolades as beautiful, et cetera, et cetera. Yes. So
Blah, blah, blah. Thank
lots of love, Anna, lots
you.
of love, verbally and with hearts. So
Thank you.
anyway, so thank you to you for joining us today to share all of this with us. And we
My pleasure.
thank everyone that has joined us today for tuning in and listening. And again, please join us in making this Our Fair Home Quilt Kit. And, we hope that the kit as well as the collection has inspired you to make. So thank you, Anna. And
Thank
until
you. And
next
thank you to
time.
everyone and everyone that joined today and sending all the love back. I appreciate it.
Yes. Well, we love having you, Anna. So until next time, thank you for joining us. We appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Enjoy
Have a
your
great
weekend.
weekend. You too.
Alrighty. Bye-bye.
Bye.